Well, hello everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. I am stoked to be sitting down to talk about some palettes with you guys today. I'm actually doing a palette tag, which I have not done a tag video in such a long time. And this one was created by Geek. I'm gonna have her original video down below. This did happen, I think a few months ago, and I've been putting off doing this because I had a really hard time answering her questions. Like, I just could not come up with good answers. But I think I've got at least some answers for your questions figured out. So I'm looking forward to just talking through these palettes and maybe doing some fun swatches with you guys. Today's tea of the day is such a fun one. A friend of mine went to England and brought me back tea. Look at this bag of jasmine dragon pearls. She knows that I love this type of tea. And this is from the Folly Tea Caddy. Oh my gosh, how English, right? From Norfolk. And if you're from England, you can tell me how badly I'm mispronouncing that. It looks like Norfolk, but I think it's Norfolk, isn't it? Anyway, thank you so much to my friend. I'm enjoying this so much. They are delicious. The first question is a palette you wore on a special occasion. This instantly stumped me. So I got into makeup around 2020, which I shouldn't say makeup. I got into eyeshadow around 2020, which, as you guys know, at that point there were not a whole lot of special occasions happening. So I really was like, man, I can't even think of a single eyeshadow palette that I wore to a special event because I haven't been to a special event in such a long time. Honestly, the last eyeshadow I can remember wearing to a special event was to a wedding. I was wearing Colourpop Ladybird. It's a beautiful, wet-looking Super Shock shadow. And the reason why I remember it so well is because I had the most intense fallout I've ever had in my life. I went to the bathroom, you look at yourself, and oh my gosh, my cheeks were just full of glitter, and I was not pleased. So anyway, to answer that question, I decided to pick a palette that I would choose to wear to a special occasion. I think I would probably first go for my Lorac Unzipped palette, because it's such an easy palette to wear and is very difficult to mess up. Plus the colors are very wedding-ish. I suppose it very much depends on the wedding you're going to, but for me this just screams wedding makeup. It's just very soft and pretty, so I would probably go for that one. But moving on from that question, the second question is a palette you love but it is repetitive. Again, something I really struggled with. I tend to really try hard not to buy palettes that are super repetitive, but after going through my collection, doing a little bit of swatching, this one from Lorac, the Fairytale Forest palette. There are a few shades in here that are very close to each other. They're not that repetitive, but they're very close. And that would be these 4 shades right here. They're all very beautiful, sparkly shades. And I love them, but they are honestly a little close to each other. Actually, these ones aren't as close to each other as I was thinking, but like these sparkly shades here are very similar to each other. I appreciate all the sparkly shades, but they could have done a little more variety there with those sparkles. So that's the palette I chose for that one. A palette where you got your money's worth. For this one, I had to go with this very old palette. I'm still using it. Some of the shades are still good. Some of them are getting pretty old. This is Mario's collaboration with Anastasia Beverly Hills. I noticed this shade up here is definitely getting old and kind of powdery, doesn't have as much pigment, but these shades over here are perfectly fine as well as these mattes. And you can see I do have pan in several of these shades and dips in others. And I actually didn't buy this new. I bought this from someone else, but I have continued to love this for years at this point, and I still really enjoy it. So I would definitely say I got my money's worth out of this one. Palette that is an amazing deal is the next one. This is another one I struggled with, but I think I need to mention Kaleidos, because Kaleidos as a brand always has really nice packaging, which we know packaging often is more expensive than the actual shadows on the inside, but they also have glorious eyeshadows. The mattes are really soft, but not in the kind of way where if you put your brush in, they'll explode everywhere. They're just really, really easy to blend. They feel expensive. The mattes feel great. And same with the shimmers. The shimmers are some of the best shimmers I've ever played with. It is really difficult to show how incredibly sparkly that one is. That is one of their more sparkly shadows versus their metallic shadows, but it is really finely milled. The sparkles are like super tiny, which makes it look extra wet on the lid, which is what I like. And they're not that expensive. Indie shadows can get very expensive. And when you look at the quality and how cool the packaging is, I think they're a great deal. This was the Sashimi City palette, by the way. I've already got sparkles everywhere. I need to go wipe my hands off. I'll be right back. Okay, the next question is a quad that you love and wish was a larger palette. I actually went with Kaleidos again. This is the Cold Brew quad, and this is a beautiful little neutral quad. Honestly, these tones are perfect for me. They're not super cool toned, they're not obviously very warm toned, and you can create a very beautiful, sophisticated matte eye, but if you really want some sparkle, I mean, here. And I really think that this could have been a larger palette. I know there's enough people out there like me who appreciate different varying shades of brown and would die for that in a palette with their formula. So yeah, I think that they could have done that for sure. Next question is, you love the quality of the eyeshadow but hate the packaging. If this was one of the ones I instantly knew. Profusion. Profusion is a brand you can buy at Walmart, and they do have their own website, and they have actually fabulous eyeshadows, especially their mattes. They're very blendy, great tones. This one is the Bare palette, which I'm not even sure if this one's still available. I don't think it is. You might be able to still find it at some Walmarts on the shelf, but I don't think you can buy it on their website anymore. But anyway, the shadows themselves are glorious, but the packaging is the kind of packaging where it has like this kind of shiny, I don't know if you would call it a sticker or what, but it's this type of thing where all you have to do is put it away one time. If it touches something into their palette, it's instantly scratched. So it looks super beat up even when it's new. And mine is not new, so it looks extra beat up. I'm gonna skip one question and come back to it at the end because I feel like that one will take me a while to talk about, so I'll save it for last. But the next question after that is palettes you like to combine together. Now I gotta be honest, I actually don't do that very often. If I'm using a palette, I typically stick to that one palette. When I tend to combine different shadows is when I'm using singles. Then I will reach into palettes for certain shades to go with the single. And so I wanted to show you my two palettes that I reach into the most to go along with my single eyeshadow collection. The first one is not gonna be a surprise to anybody. It's the Going Coconuts palette. The tones in this one are just really wonderfully neutral. This shade up here and this shade here are really good for me for my crease. This one's slightly cooler than this one, but this one still isn't super warm. We do have one warmer shade in the palette, but it's not like pulling orange or anything like that. It's just a super handy palette to have to mix with something if you need the perfect crease shade. And along the same lines, the Beauty Bay Neutral palette, another one I reach into just for the mattes to have some beautiful crease shades. These ones are especially neutral, like they're just really neutral shades, and they're really creamy. I really like the Beauty Bay matte formula. Very creamy, very luxurious feeling, even though this is a very affordable palette. A large palette that you wish was smaller. So I don't tend to buy a lot of very big palettes just because I know that I will only reach for certain shades in the palette, so I try to avoid doing that. But I decided to go with this one from Fenty. This is my only palette from Fenty. This is the Moroccan Spice palette, and I actually enjoy this palette a lot. I know a lot of people said they found the shadows to be too soft for their liking. I actually really like that. I think this makes it really easy to use. But there are several shades that I don't really use. I could probably cut this palette in half and be happy. Oh, and this was a gift from a friend, so thank you again so much to my friend because I do really enjoy this palette. But this one definitely does suffer in terms of my not reaching for all the shades. But this palette is discontinued, sadly. The next one is an eyeshadow palette you wish had a matching face palette. So actually my first inclination was the Pat McGrath with Divine Rose, and then I laughed. I'm like, I know there's face palettes out there that match Pat McGrath Divine Rose. I know she's like made collections. I just haven't purchased one myself. But the next one that came to mind, the Sydney Grace Enduring Love palette. It's so pretty, right? I think they could absolutely come out with some sort of a matching face palette for this. It would probably be pretty cool toned or just kind of neutral tones. And they could absolutely have packaging that matches this one. It would be super beautiful. I would buy that. Okay, the last question, the one that I think will take a while to talk about, is show your dream palette with singles. Now this was exciting to me. So I have this one here. This actually wasn't big enough to hold my dream palette. I had to leave out the mattes that I would put in a dream palette. I ended up just kind of grabbing most of my favorite shades from my collection in terms of shimmers and satins. I have a rose gold, 2 different tones of pink, a beautiful champagne shade that's like a beautiful inner corner shade, a couple amazing shades here from Glam Shop, they're like beautiful, beautiful glitters. Then I've got a row of purples with different shifts to them. I've got the most glorious satin taupe shade. This is from Nabla. I'm pretty sure this is discontinued. Nabla has redone their single shadows, and I don't think I've seen this come back. And then I really, really love this type of shade. This is Makeup Geek in the Spotlight. This is actually the second shade from the Kaja Orange Blossom Trio. And then I really love green eyeshadow as well. And these are my 2 favorite shades of green to wear. This one is like a super, super bright metallic green, and this one is a little bit more softer. I'm gonna quick swatch everything out for you. JD Glow Moscato. Oh, Sydney Grace Blondie. Sydney Grace Peace, Makeup Geek Shimma Shimma. Can you even see that? It's beautiful. Glam Shop. I think this is the shade Fluff. It's the most beautiful yellow topper shade. Nabla Entropy. Oh, love that. And then for something much more glitzy but still a taupe, this is Sydney Grace Tiara. Then we have Glass Bowl from Colourpop. Winter Garden from Sydney Grace, Troops from Sydney Grace. Oh, here we have another incredibly beautiful topper shade from Glam Shop, but instead of yellow, this one pulls purple. I think this one is called Moondust. The names on the back are in Polish, and I can never remember the translation, but I think it's Moondust. Makeup Geek in the Spotlight. The second shade from the Kaja Orange Blossom Trio. I just love this shade. This is Makeup Geek Leafing So Soon. Beautiful green. And then Makeup Geek Illuminati. So there you have my favorite lid shades to wear. This is my perfect palette. Wow. And if I was going to make it even more perfect, of course, I would include my favorite kinds of mattes. I would include a matte dark brown, a matte cream shadow, and then something like this. This is Speedway from Sydney Grace. It is a beautiful, cool toned kind of purpley shade that goes very, very well with the types of shades I like to wear. Then I would have something like this. This is Makeup Geek Beach Please. It's a perfect crease shade as long as you're not wearing anything too warm. Beach Please. I would have something that goes a little more pink but not too pink. This is Makeup Geek Prim and Proper, which looks like that. I would probably want to include a mustard matte. This is Makeup Geek Had Me at Yellow. It's not too mustard, but these shades can be super fun, especially in the fall. I would have a neutral brown to put in the crease. This is the shade Creased from Makeup Geek, like that. And I would include a gray. This is the shade Moon Landing from Sydney Grace. There we have the mattes. And of course the lid shades. What do you guys think of my perfect palette? I think I'm pretty stoked with it. I might include, to make this perfect, one more warm matte to go in the crease. This is a depotted old elf shade. Let's add that to this mix and see. Yeah, that just makes it that much more balanced. Perfect, that's better. Oh, yeah, I love my palette. And for someone who says I don't like big palettes, this would be one of those palettes where I would use every single shade and they would all go together. Oh, it makes me so happy. Anyway, that was a really fun question, and that was the last one. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for following along, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get to this tag. And thank you to Chic Geek for creating these tags. These are always really fun to do. What palettes would you answer for these questions? I would love to know. I am gonna make sure and put the questions in the description box. So if you want to do this project or this tag as well, make sure to do so. Chatting about palettes is just super fun. So I had fun doing this video. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye.